each, and then they'll have 1 minute for a closing statement, and then they're done. Everybody understand? 2 questions, two, and 1 closing statement. 5 minutes total. All right. So we'll start with the first group that we had up.
Well, number
Or
one.
just number one?
You guys remember
Who is number 1?
If you remember.
Ah, that was Ron. Okay.
One at a time.
All right, 1 at a time, and you can stay from the stage, you can walk around, whatever makes you feel comfortable.
Yeah, Ron Wright. What I want to do is answer one question that I didn't get, and that was the one dealing with what's the primary function of a congressman. There's a lot of really important issues before the country, but there is never anything more important than the protection of freedom and the American people. And that has to be the most important function of every member of the United States Congress. And whenever there's a law or a bill that's being proposed or discussed, debated, voted on, and this would also apply to the president, of course, that should be measured against the impact it's had on our freedoms. And when I mean freedom in all of its manifestations: personal freedom, economic freedom, freedom of religion, all 3 of which are under attack by the left in this country. And if we're not ready to take a hard stand on this issue and make sure that it's the number 1 thing we look at any time a bill's being proposed or debated or voted on, what's its effect on freedom? And if it's going to diminish it, or it's going to expand it, or it won't have any effect at all, most of the time it's going to have an effect. And so that's, to me, is the most important function of any congressman, is to make sure that no matter how good it sounds, no matter how good it makes you feel, if it's going to diminish freedom, that should be a no vote. Okay, thank you.
You want to get the closing statement? Or was that your closing?
No, you want me to go and do the closing?
And your closing statement.
Oh, okay.
Unless you want to make that when you're closing.
Very briefly, again, I have a public record. I was in the private sector for 30 years, but I've been a community volunteer most of my adult life. I've held leadership positions on boards and commissions, mostly in Tarrant County. Elective office, city council, 4 terms, tax assessor collector. I was Barton's district director for 9 years, his chief of staff for 2.5 years in Washington. I understand the district and how it works. I understand Washington and how it works. And I invite you to look at the record. As councilman that proposed and got passed a supermajority to set the tax rate before the state required it, a supermajority to use eminent domain, because those are the 2 times that a city can take it from you. They'll take your money in the form of taxes, they'll take your property through eminent domain. It should never be easy to do. So I got that passed in Arlington. I also led the effort to strengthen our SOB ordinance, and what Arlington has today is the strongest in the state of Texas. When I was elected to city council, we had 14 strip joints with an application pending for a 15th. We went in knowing we would be sued, and we were, and we prevailed, and all of those strip joints are gone. That was my proposition. It's something I worked on for 2 years and got it done. As tax assessor collector, I put "In God We Trust" on tax statements and envelopes in the tax office, because I believe it's the national motto. It should go on all government documents. And I did it knowing I would probably be sued. I was threatened. All these atheist organizations throughout the United States threatened me. None of them sued me because they knew that they would lose. I came out very strongly against red light cameras. I'm on record after seeing how they operated, especially in Arlington. And I'll tell you, when I was on the city council, I voted to put them in. And that was a mistake. And when I saw how they were operating, I became a very vocal critic. I was the tax assessor in Texas that said no to blocking registration for red light camera fines. Other tax assessors have done that since then, but at the time I was the only one. My point is, I have a record of standing up. Others can talk about it, but I've done it. And I'll do the same thing for you in Congress. Thank you very much.
Alrighty. My name is Shannon Dubberly. I'm going to answer two questions. I'm going to answer two questions. The first one is, do you believe the U.S. Constitution is a living, breathing document? The answer is no. If it was, what's the point? What would the laws mean? Right? The second question is, what is your position on FISA? FISA actually stands for the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. I've actually read the results of FISA warrants. When I read them, they were from terrorists abroad. There was no Americans in the stuff I read. And the fact that a cadre of FBI officials can violate the Fourth Amendment of a U.S. citizen is disgusting. And the fact that it happened means this needs to be reviewed and redone. And I think a lot of that comes down to a lot of these bureaucrats not being afraid of Congress. Congress hasn't held their feet to the fire. And with guys like Trey Gowdy leaving, men that stand up and ask tough questions in hearings, we need a strong congressman in there that's going to hold their feet to the fire. And that's what I'm going to do. And for my closing, I want to say that to some of you, I may look young and inexperienced, but what I can tell you is of all the candidates in the race, I'm the only one with the background in intelligence, national security, counterterrorism, streamlining military budgets, diplomacy, and the private sector in oil and gas. I bring a diverse resume, and that is the fresh perspective that I'll bring to no one else can. My name is Shannon Dubberly, and I would appreciate your support and vote. Thank you much.
I am Deborah Gagliardi. Two questions. The one about what would I vote on that would be dispopular? I would have to say that would be education. I have 4 daughters. All of them now have a bachelor's degree. Education is extremely important to me, and it is being wasted. It is totally being wasted. We have so many bureaucrats in that department. We have lowered the standards. We've taken out competition. All of my girls could read when they went to school. It's also part of the parent's job. I support anyone who wants to homeschool as long as your child is educated. We have to change the education system. The reason so many people do not know about the Constitution is because it's not taught. They're teaching them more about global warming and ridiculous issues than they are math, science, and reading. So that is the one thing that I would take head on. And my oldest daughter is a teacher. She is a math teacher. She specializes in teaching math to girls, and she teaches internationally. She's presented internationally on this subject. So what we have to do is raise the standards and give the power back to the teachers, just like the taxpayers need their power back. The second question, since we have two, is what is passionate to me? And that is freedom. That is my legislative freedom. And that is why I joined the militia. That is why I fight whenever they try to take things away from us and tell us that, oh, no, I'm working with you. That is wrong. It says, what bill would you write to sponsor or promote this issue? None. What I would do is enforce the laws we have. We do not need immigration reform. We have laws right now that tell you you cannot invade our country. But instead they make a big political issue out of it, a big media issue. Oh, what are we going to do about the children? Well, what about grandma that was brought over here against her will because she didn't have any, way to stay there? What are we doing about that? Why do they just focus on the one thing? They keep us busy with trivial stuff while they take right after right after right away from us. Now, they all want to stand up and tell us how much they're doing for you, but they're not really doing that. So, in my closing argument, without these heels, I'm only 5'4", but I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not afraid of facing those who want to take our rights. And not just because I'm pretty dead on at 100 yards with my AR, I am just not afraid. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? They need more people standing up. So join me in standing up and having your voice heard. Do not allow these career politicians to continue to give you tokens back with your own money.
The question I want to answer is, number 8, what would you tell President Trump about DACA? Well, I'm the only candidate up here that's already told one president no and a vice president, and I will have no problem telling President Trump that he needs to stand firm on DACA. DACA is a national security concern. I feel like these illegal immigrants come over here and they have more rights in our country than we do, and I won't stand for that. And to Shannon's point that he's the only one with national security experience, I disagree with that. I supported and defended the Constitution of the United States, so I'm pretty sure I have national security experience. So in closing, I want you to look at who you're electing. Don't just go off of a nice sound bite or a pretty smile. Look at who's going to do something for you and not take advantage of you. Look at somebody that's not going to sell you out as soon as they get to Washington. Look for somebody that's not going to take tons of lobbyist money and not do nothing for you. Look for somebody that's going to stand up for you and only you. Thank you.
First of all, I do like to smile. I think that it kind of helps the environment a little bit if we're smiling at each other instead of frowning. First question I'd like to look at is question number 11, which is state your position regarding the just enacted tax cuts and the Job Acts of 2017. First of all, I agree with the tax cuts that President Trump has done. I think it was a very good move. However, I do not believe that he went far enough. I believe that the tax cutting situation should have been better by eliminating the IRS, which we talked about earlier. I think it could have gone much further to benefit our country. The other activities that he's gone, I believe that this particular act is going to generate more revenue for our country in the form of jobs, jobs, jobs. And I think that that's what's going to be needed to solve a lot of our social issues and strife between the different social communities that we have in this country, specifically Black, Hispanic, white, etc. More jobs is what's important, because there is no color problem between our country. The only color that we should be concerned with is green. Green levels the field between everyone and solves the issues that we're talking about. Second question I'd like to discuss is number 18. The president wants trillions of dollars to improve the American infrastructure. I do have concerns about the infrastructure bill. I believe that every one of those items that he has on the bill need to be scrutinized. Scrutinized to the point, do they have a cost and a benefit? I'm afraid that we have the earmarks that we were talking about. Basically, that's the same thing, where there's being items proposed that are for the benefit of not maybe everybody, but a specific community. I would scrutinize every single one of them. And I have also been on record as telling the president that his high-speed rail project, $13 billion, is an ugly baby. And I'm not afraid of telling him that, and think that there's a better way that we can spend that $13 billion going forward and still meet the need or desire for having high-speed rail in our country. The high-speed rail project here in Texas from Houston to Dallas is a terrible project for Texas. And what the people of Tarrant County do not understand is that this is getting ready to go right over their head, and nobody has told them, because there is another one coming from Oklahoma City all the way to Monterrey, Mexico. And when it does, the problems that the counties between Houston and Dallas have been experiencing is going to happen to them. It won't be someone else, it will be them. So I believe that as we look at those projects, we really should be considering spending that money in our national defense area for equipment, for the needs of our military, which has been significantly depressed. There are better places to put some of those funds. But when you scrutinize the individual ones, then you can take that money and put it over in somewhere else. Like money from Pakistan and the United Nations, we ought to be putting it in our national defense. So, in conclusion, I would like to say that there's a lot of other issues out there that we haven't had a chance and opportunity to talk about. I invite you to go out to my website, copetexas.com, take a look at it, send me a note if you have a specific question. I'll be glad to answer that. You also have my phone number that you can call me directly on it. I've already expressed how I feel about the high-speed rail, and that my 4 years of experience of fighting against it, I believe is what this community needs, is one of the significant items going forward. I would also say that you and your vote do count. I cannot win this election without having your support, and I respectfully and humbly request your support and your vote, and that's what I'm asking for tonight. So, lastly, I would just ask that may our Lord continue to protect our country, keep it safe, prosperous, and free. Thank you, and Godspeed.
I just want to clarify, since my name was used, I did not say I was the only person with national security experience. I said I was the only person with a diverse background. And just wanted to rebut. Thank you. Because we have qualified people over here that have a lot of national security experience.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Those of us who...
All right, two questions. I get two questions here. So I'm going to take the one, President Trump proposed a solution to the DACA issue that most conservatives would not have even considered a few months back. If I had a chance to be able to meet with him, what would I tell him? Well, one of the things I would tell him is you need to talk to the American people and explain why you've changed your position. Because he was very adamant in the middle of the election that this is the way that things were going to be. And now he's changing his position a little bit, which, look, he's a deal maker. This is what deal makers do. Smart deal makers may start out here and bring things over. But I think it's important for him to come out to the American people and to be able to explain to them exactly what they're feeling. Now, I will tell you this. I've actually got two people who remember my campaign team. One of them who's in the Oval with President Trump. He's with him 2 times every month. He's one of his prayer ministry partners, Ramiro Pena. And I've got another one who this week, he's going to be in with President Trump on Wednesday, Carl Dorval, who's over our digital and he's over our youth movement. And both of them have had the opportunities to be able to share, or Carl will, he was with Ivanka in India last month, but they've had the opportunity to be able to share a little bit of our plans to push it on to them. So I'm telling them, hey, show them what our plan is. Again, plans, kevinforcongress.org. I've got a 7-point immigration protection plan. The second thing is, we can all agree Obamacare is a step too far. I think that's an understatement, but I think we can. And as a representative in Washington, what are your specific thoughts for real health care reform? Here's where we're going to start. The government never makes anything any better. So we're going to get them out of business, okay? Government was never intended to be in the health care business. It was never their right to be there, and so they've already messed things up. We saw with the Obamacare website, it only took a few minutes before everything started to crash. So we don't need the government involved in that. So they need to be out of health care altogether. What we need to do is we need to be working with, not demanding insurance companies to do this, but we need to work with them. We need to remove the barriers that are stopping insurance companies from competing across state lines. It doesn't make sense that I'm going to have to build a building in each state in which I'm going to work. And so, you know what that does for us? That causes the prices to be raised as a result. So we've got to remove those barriers there. We've also got to have realistic tort reform. We can't have people just suing people left and right just because, somebody didn't like this or they didn't like that. We've got a doctor shortage in our country, and one of the big problems, doctors don't want to pay for insurance. So we've got to put in realistic tort reform. Then beyond that, we've got to, let me do one more thing here. We've got to make sure that we have consumer and insurance protections to make sure that costs are not going up too high. When I say that, here's what I mean. We've got a practice in Texas, a deceptive trades practice, that, for instance, whenever there is a hurricane that comes and hits like it did hit in Houston, we've got this on record, on law, that they cannot raise the gas prices beyond a certain amount. Well, that's just seems to make sense. We need to do this as well with insurance companies and with hospitals so that they're not saying, you know what, you're a cash pay patient, so you're going to pay a little bit different than this person who's an insured. I'll give you a great example of this. My daughter recently had an MRI on her shoulder because she's a volleyball player. Constant repetitive movement for 8 years. That's what she's had. Now, if we had gone in and we had used our insurance, you know what the cost would have been for the insurance company? It would have been $3,275. But guess what? We said, we're going to do cash pay. You know what happened when we did cash pay? Sir, it's only $325. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. What's it doing? It's driving prices up for us. So we have to make sure that we do away with that. And then last thing, again, we're working with insurance companies. We want to find viable options. Look, I would love to see everybody covered with health care. I would love that. That's not our responsibility. That's not what we are called to do. But if we work with insurance companies, we say, okay, let's take a creative look at all these things. What are some of the things we can do? Well, you know, one thing we can do, telemedicine. I don't know how many of you are familiar with telemedicine, but literally I can sit here on my cell phone. I can have a doctor diagnose me. I've done this. He can sit there and look at pictures. We can go back and forth. And guess what? I can have a $40 a month copay with this, and it's $10 for him to do that. So I'm not having to run off to a doctor, sit in a room where it's wasting money from employers. So that's one great thing we can do. We can look not only at telemedicine, but using urgent cares, putting plans together that would use the urgent cares and use them so that they could treat, kind of the frontline types of things. So we can find creative solutions without government mandating these things. Last thing I tell you is I want to just briefly talk to you about me. I told you I've been a pastor for over 30 years. There's nobody who understands people more than I do. Because you know what? I have spent my life with people. I've given my life to serving people. I've built churches, schools, medical clinics, and orphanages around the world. And I'm here, and I want to serve, as I've served other people, I want to serve you. Thank you very much.
Thank you again. My name's Troy Rattery. You can see my sign that says Big Troy. That's just my family name. There is a little Troy out there. Didn't want y'all to confuse my son with me as I'm running for Congress. A couple of the questions that I would like to just briefly comment on is our federal government funds well over 150 unconstitutional departments and agencies. Big reason why I'm here. Those are the Department of Energy, the EPA. So there's two things that really affect our lives that our federal government does. One's regulation, the other is they tax us. They're either telling you you can't do it or they're taking your money so you can't do it. It's one of those two things, and as a small businessman, as a man that just knows how to go up there, put his boot where his boot needs to be put to get something done, that's what I will do. I will stop the federal agencies by first making every single regulation that they look at passing have to first receive congressional approval. Now, a lot of people say, well, Troy, Congress can't agree on anything. I said, that's fine, because the regulations that they're throwing out are killing our business, and they're making your life worse. Toilets that don't flush, we can go on with the different regulations. Secondly, is a question regarding the constitutional requirement, Article 4, which essentially is immigration and what we're going to do about that. And I spoke briefly about it, but the solution is here, and there's nobody that has the guts to go up there and push the button. I'm the guy that has the guts to push the button. I'll tell you why. I'm only going to be there 2 terms, 4 years. If I run a 3rd term, please don't vote for me. Do me a favor, because I have been corrupted. I am not an establishment person. These guys know it. I am so far from the establishment, they don't even know who I am. If I can stay under the radar and get up there, I surely can make some changes. And I mean that with all my heart. So those 2 things, I'll use my life experience. 37 years of small business. I know what it takes to help small business. I can't fix every single problem in this world. But let me tell you, immigration, I can fix that. Why is Troy Rattery the guy that says, push this button, you have E-Verify? Everybody's documented. Number 2, if you come here illegally, you can never be a citizen. We take the carrot that we've been dangling as a country. That's on us, people. Don't blame the people that came here. Blame our country for dangling a carrot that somebody comes and takes. Stop dangling the carrot. Don't give them a monetary reason, their ability to stay here, and our electronic border wall is up. Now folks, I have spent exactly $0 in solving 95% of our illegal immigration problems. $0. Now then, that's a business guy, right? Because Miss Rosa knows I am a tightwad. I live my life on a balanced budget, so balanced I'm debt-free. I run a business, a global business. I may be one of the few in the world that is debt-free. I will just simply point out the stupidity of how our government spends money, and I can do it in a way I believe that folks are going to hear it and go, no, Troy, we agree with you. That's a stupid highway to nowhere in Alaska. Who would want to build that? There's a boondoggle going on beside your high-speed rail, which is a horrible thing. There's an airport going on where you already have an airport. And I think that's going on right here in Ennis. You got an airport. And they're trying to build another airport. Who's going to pay for this stuff? Again, the taxes that they take from you to give to somebody else. I want to keep those in your pocket and let you have the freedom to buy the things you want in life. If you elect me, that's exactly what I'll do. Big Troy for Congress. You can see me at Big Troy 2018 is where my website is. Thank you so much for your for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Big Troy. Well, I'd like to answer two questions. One is the first one. Over time, the legislative, judicial, and executive branches have failed to act as a check and balance on each other. Number one question. Are people losing their freedoms due to this failure? Yes. How can Congress check an out-of-control judicial branch? Well, I think Congress has forgotten their job. They've forgotten that they can impeach these judges. The judges think, I've got this for life, but they don't. But we have to do our job, Congress has to do their job, and either impeach these people or persuade them. They can't persuade them, so the only thing left is to impeach them. Number 4 says everybody has got something that's near and dear to your heart, and probably it is one of the reasons you're running for Congress. What's your legislative passion? And what bill would I write to sponsor and promote this issue? Well, next to Obamacare, my passion is guns. And I think that we need a gun protection law, or a law that will actually protect us and our rights to have our firearms, and not to have a national registry, not to have people taking our guns from us or IDing our ammunition or doing whatever. The reason that we're free in this country is because we have gun rights and we have the ability to use them. So all I've got to say is don't take my guns away. I have an FFL, Federal Firearm License. I sell guns to people. And honestly, I think that is a premier right that we have to defend, we have to protect, and is very essential. And as far as my conclusion, I have a lot of education, but you know that and $5 will buy you a cup of coffee at Starbucks. But you know, a small one, yes, a small one. But you know, that education can be used, and I'd love to use it for you, to be your voice and to stand and to use everything I've learned, everything I am, to your benefit, to be your voice. I have experience. I've experience as a doctor in insurance industry, medical office. I've done everything there is to do in medicine, and I can fix Obamacare. However, I believe I'd rather have it repealed, but I can fix it if we can't repeal it. As an attorney, I've written resolutions. I've done everything that Congress does. I've examined witnesses. I've cross-examined people. I've done criminal trials. I've done everything. And the bottom line is I know what to do and how to do it. As a small business owner, I'm not going to talk about the electrician part of it, you know, because that's pretty simple. But as a small business owner, I have to have a payroll that I have to keep and a budget. I don't think that you should go to Congress or even be a politician if you haven't done a payroll, because that's an experience that I think we all should have to have. So I keep a payroll and I keep a budget. I believe Congress should be required to keep a budget. Now, passing a law, no. All we need to do is enact out Article 1, Section 8, the enumerated powers, and we don't need a budget. But that's all I'm going to say about that. The bottom line is, I'm a Christian, I'm a conservative, and I'm a Republican in that order. And if you will give me the opportunity and give me your consideration and ultimately your vote, I will do like my wife says. He's the hardest working man I know. I will work hard, I will be your voice, and I will fight for you. Fight like I've never fought before. And I was a Golden Gloves fighter when I was 16, so I know how to fight. Ladies and gentlemen, all I can say is God bless you, God bless Texas, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
Would all the veterans stand up, please? Everybody here that's a veteran. Thank you very much. Round of applause. Vietnam veterans. Vietnam veterans, welcome home. Thank you very much. One of the questions was, what are you passionate about? For the last 5.5 years, I've been a commissioner on the Texas Veterans Commission. That is not a paid job, it's an appointed job by the governor, which I voluntarily do and enjoy doing. We take care of 1.7 million Texas veterans, and we take care of every difficulty that they have and advocate for them with the VA, and it's a job I'm very passionate about. When I go up to Washington, D.C., what I want to point out is that we've been at war, sort of. We've been in conflict, not declared war, for the last 16 years. We need to change how we look at war. Congress has a role to play in actual war. We need to step up and declare war and have a mission statement and have an idea of what it is we're doing in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Africa, and several other places around this world. We owe that to our military. We owe that to the taxpayer. But what I propose in the near term right now, we've been at war for 16 years. The DOD cannot release anybody who's been activated from the reserves or on active duty into the civilian population until their disability has been reviewed head to toe and they receive their disability rating. I deal with men and women every day who don't have their disability rating, they don't have their hiring preferences, and they don't know what's wrong with them. And we've been at war for 16 solid years with an all-volunteer service with numerous deployments, and they're coming back home. And the guys I was on the ground with SEAL Team 5 in 2006 in Iraq, that was 11 years ago. My friends are dying, and they're not dying because they got old. They're dying because they're taking their own lives. And it's time to stop this epidemic. The tidal wave has just started. We owe that to our veterans. It must be done today. It's not a Democrat or Republican issue. It's an American issue, and we owe that to them. I'm a country boy. I live in the country in Ellis County. My friends are in the path of the high-speed rail. I will talk to anybody who will listen. I have been a leader my entire life. I will do everything I can as a member of Congress to prevent anything coming through your backyard and our backyard with the high-speed rail. And I want to point out I appreciate all the work he's done over the last 4 years, because he's worked very, very hard and he's made it a big issue, and I'm very proud of him for doing that, and he's done a lot of legwork. So Ken, thanks for doing what you've been doing. It's not an infrastructure deal. It's a business deal. I'm an airline pilot. I can fly you and do from Dallas to Houston for half the price in half the time and far, far safer. There is no business reason for this. There is no business reason whatsoever, and it will destroy lives. I'm not going to stand by and let that happen. This will destroy so many lives. Friends of mine in this path, somebody's going to have to explain to me what this thing is, why we're having this at all. It would be just like the federal government saying, you know what, we're going to build a brand new airline and we're going to fund it, but it's only going to fly from Dallas Love Field to Houston. Well, that's not an infrastructure project. That's a stupid business. Not on my watch. I am here because I'm a miracle. Everybody can agree that life begins at conception through natural birth, natural death. I'm a miracle because God has decided it's not time for me to go. In 2001, I was flying my F-14 Tomcat, and I was flying around the ship, and we were dropping practice bombs, little 25-pound bombs that just have a little gunpowder charge in them so you can see where they hit, and we were flying around the ship. I was flying around, and I was in a 15-degree dive from 4,000 feet, 15-degree dive, 500 miles an hour. I stopped paying attention because I wasn't seeing what I was supposed to see, and I went down to push a couple of buttons. It was a beautiful, beautiful day. Light blue sky, dark blue water. One of my sensors went off saying I was too low, and I looked up and I saw dark blue. I pulled back on the stick, and I bottomed out at 50 feet. In a 15-degree dive at 50 feet at 500 miles an hour, that's 0.2 seconds from impact. People who know me will tell you I'm not that good of a pilot. So the only reason I'm here is because God said, I'm not done with you yet, dummy. A friend of mine on my wrist died in April of 2006. I don't know why he died, and it wasn't me, but my job is to serve him and serve because he can't. And that's what I'm going to do for you. Thank you for your time.
Hello? Yeah, that concludes the public forum part of this thing. We're going to go back to the meet and greet where you can quiz these people one-on-one on what you just heard. I also got these candidates, the class of 2018, to stand up for a class photo. And if you guys come up and do that, I don't care how you stand. Yeah, please get up on the stage. Anybody wants to take pictures?
I'll just make one comment. I noticed when we was doing